James.
Oh, hello James. Anyone who's watching us on the webcam can see the lovely James in the studio.
It's a real love in here as well.
Yeah,
You can
it is.
feel the love.
Well, it's a show all about relationships, and relationships. You're having a relationship with the person that who perhaps you're shopping for you at the supermarket, you know, or if you're interacting with someone online. It's all relating to these people, and if we relate with people positively and lovingly and respectfully, you're going to get that back. The family that slays together stays together. What's your comment on that? I know it was actually well, the other thing that Julie said, she did tweet me last night and said she is married to her soulmate. And I know we talked about soulmates earlier, and I just think when you meet that person, you do actually want to spend all your time with them, don't you? You don't actually want to go out and go partying and do all this, you know, all the stuff that you do when you're single, when you're looking for someone, because you just instinctively know that actually you want to concentrate your efforts and be with that person.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say that opposites attract, but actually it's people who've got something in common, and a lot in common makes it much easier.
Yeah.
And so I think if you have lots of things that you don't have in common, then you end up going out and doing other things, and you're not together, and there's nothing to talk about, and there's actually no real connection.
Yeah.
And it can end up just being a quick, let's kind of catch up in a nightclub, don't know anything about you, end up, you know, having kids very swiftly on.
I'm glad you said kids.
I thought carefully about that.
Thank you. Meet you in a nightclub. Let's go have kids.
But without ever really making the relationship, and you know, that can have its own sort of tentative problems as well, because then the parents tend to put more focus on the children than they do on each other, because they don't really have that much in common. And then invariably one or t'other will meet somebody else, and then the children find that that's, you know, they're no longer the centre of attention, and you know, the whole sort of script kind of plays itself out.
Yeah, I'd even add to that and say you could take it even further and get to the stage where the children leave home, whether for university or, you know, whatever, they've grown up and got a job or whatever, and you get the empty nest syndrome, and that's a lot of marriages actually break up at that time.
And women are very sort of confused as to what their identity is at that point. You know, they're going through hormonal changes.
God, I know I went through that. Well, when my kids kind of got to the stage where they were socialising a lot more, they didn't really need me around because they're both teenagers. And I just had to go through this whole kind of, well, actually, what do I want? Because when you're a mum or when you're a parent, because, you know, there are lots of single dads out there as well, you do focus your attention on the children, and everything you do is for them, and you forget yourself. And that can happen in a relationship as well, can't it? Where you lose yourself in that relationship.
Yes, yeah. I think it's up to each of us to actually find out our own identity before we, you know, lose ourselves in family situations. I mean, it's, you know, wonderful to, obviously mothers want to dedicate a lot of their time to kids, but also the kids' benefits being shown time and time again if parents have their own interests.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, it actually makes them stronger as well.
Yeah, oh no, I agree, and it equips them more for real life, doesn't it? Because what happens I know that there are households out there where children are not being raised in a loving, nurturing environment, but I'm talking about the environments where children are loved and wanted and protected, and home is a place of safety for them. And in that environment, if you do see your parents with their own interests and doing their own thing, and bringing, so that it's kind of exploring the element of freedom within a relationship, but knowing that freedom doesn't mean you go out and you meet someone else. But freedom means you go out and you explore the world and you bring something positive back into the relationship.
I think what that phrase that if you do things as a family, that's really, really nice. I know Asian communities do that quite a lot. We would go out as a family quite a lot, and I think that doesn't happen as often in the English communities. Maybe people will go to church together, I don't know. But yeah, I think that it's nice when you do sort of, as a family, meet other families. It does have that sense of togetherness. And, you know, a lot of people nowadays are just eating separately in front of the TV or whatever, grabbing a bite. And yeah, it's interesting to see what would happen if people did that more, how that impacts on society.
And also, actually, just following on from that, and maybe this is one for you, Olivia, what sort of impact do you think it has on children's adult relationships? and this is really clumsy, the relationship that parents have with each other, what impact does that have on children when they grow up and have adult relationships themselves?
Massive, massive impact. Because we learn from what we see around us. So our parents, when we're very, very young, become almost like godlike creatures in our lives because we don't know anything else. If we've learned that in fact the two adults don't like each other or don't behave well or don't integrate well or are unkind, then we just start to absorb that ourselves.
We might not even know that it's unkindness or
absolutely.
You know,
we just
bad
assume
behaviour.
that is normal, so we carry on behaving like that ourselves. So we're almost absorbing it like a sponge without even being able to discern or question it, and then playing it out and projecting it into future relationships. And we've all done it. I'm going to stick my hand up to that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've done it. I know I've done it. You know, I've haven't been complimentary always about my ex-husband, my children's father, but then at the same time, I have balanced it. Hope I've balanced it, and tried not to be such a bad mum.
I'm sure you're a very, very good mum. And anybody that talks about freedom absolutely gets what relationships are about. Because a lot of relationships fall down because people think, I own you, you do what I say, this is about control. But if you allow the other person, whoever that is, and whatever kind of relationship, to be free to be themselves, then you get the highest vibration, and that's when it starts, to become really magical.
Yeah, Manjir?
Yeah, I totally echo that. Interesting situation with my first marriage. You're talking about marriages there. I effectively was a single girl because my ex-husband and I ended up going very, very differently in our interests. And I wanted to go out, I wanted to meet people, I was doing sort of various campaigning work, and he didn't want to do anything, so he would just want to stay at home, and I'm a very vivacious sort of person, and also interested in lots of things. I lived in London, I went to courses, and it's interesting because if you do that for too long, you end up having completely separate lives, and that's what happened in my first marriage. Yeah,
and you have to show an interest in each other's interests and each other's lives, even if it doesn't necessarily interest you.
But I think the relationships, the work of those where there is that in common, because if you're showing an interest, you're actually being slightly patronising as well.
Oh, right, okay.
Because then the other person also feels you're not really interested, but you're just giving it lip service, so then you're almost breaking the trust up.
Gosh, it's so complicated, isn't it? I'm so glad I'm single.
Oh, be careful what you wish for.
This is Scouting for Girls Heartbeat. Manjir, should I be calling you Dr. Manjir?
Oh, Manjir's fine.
Okay, so it's just occurred to me I should be calling you Doctor. Manjir's just signed her books for me, which thank you so much for your books. The Genius Groove, which is the new science of creativity, and the very well known Punk Science, which is inside the mind of God. Now, okay, a minute to explore this. Is that blasphemous? Am I going to burn in hell for having this book and for owning this book?
It actually came out of something Stephen Hawking said in his very famous book, Brief History of Time. He said, now we shall know the mind of God.
Because you know what they did to Salman Rushdie, don't you?
Oh,
gosh.
gosh.
I don't want any of that malarkey.
No, not at all. It's something that physicists talk about a lot, and it's related to the fact that books are a lot about consciousness, the cosmic. So I was talking about the biggest consciousness there is, which is what we might call God.
Fabulous. Well, yeah, you might call it God, or you might call it the higher source, or higher consciousness, or
the universe, or the God blob.
Yeah, the God blob, or the Jedi Master, wherever you want to take it there. Thank you very much for bringing the books in. I will be reading those. You're very grown up, aren't you? You're real.
No, she's not.
The book's yellow and pink.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
She knows a lot like a grown-up, and it's a huge amount of fun to be with. So.
Oh, fabulous. Right, well, this is Baby Now That I Found You, which is dedicated to Olivia and Simon.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh.
I can see clearly now, and Silent James can see clearly now, because he's got a new lens, yay, which he bought from Los Angeles. And we're very happy for him. We've had a lovely, lovely message in from Simon. Yay, hi Simon, he's listening to the show. It's a lovely, lovely message. Hi Mumtaz, Olivia and Manjir, thanks for your combined wisdom, great show. He doesn't know you that well then, does he? My experience is that when we let go of our own emotional baggage, we become the person we were born to be. Then it's more likely we'll meet our perfect soul partner and live freely and happily. It's that word free again, isn't it? We'll also take that love in our hearts wherever we go. Lots of love to you all, Simon, with a little kiss.
Oh, don't you just love him?
Oh, there's an awful lot of shenanigans going on in the studio today. Manjir has just said she's just been stroking Olivia, so she decided to stroke James as well. Right, so we've got James on the mic. Hello, James.
Hello.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks
I'm
for
going to turn your
inviting
mic
me.
up as well, because that will help.
So this is the male perspective, I understand.
Yes, thank you. You've actually been very good in the studio, very quiet, nodding and smiling at the appropriate times. And now we've kind of, 3 women, told you, Don, told you this would happen. 3 women have got you to come on mic and talk about relationships and particularly freedom within a relationship from a male perspective.
Okay, well, hello everybody. Okay, my perspective on freedom. Do you know, I always think that whoever you're with is an amazing emotional reflection of who you are. So that if you have that mirror, what you can actually do is you can actually start to understand the emotion that's in you. So for example, if somebody's angry or somebody's sad or something, look at yourself, because the anger and sadness is actually in you. So once you start to understand that, it starts to get clear in yourself. And what I find is that clarity and clarity and clarity, suddenly you get freer and freer. And what I do in business is I used to own a software company and took it to the stock market and so on. And when I did the emotional work on myself, I actually was open and freer to actually take the company and float it and do amazing things with my work experience and make it an international software house. And it's the same with relationships. It's all about relationships, people in the work, people who are around you. They're all emotional mirrors to who you are. And if you can really understand that and really connect with that and start to understand how you do the emotional work with yourself, it grows your soul. I really believe it actually starts to allow you to develop as a human, and I believe in reincarnation. I believe in many lifetimes, and as we come down time and time again, perhaps the man, perhaps the woman, we're actually getting the different experiences, and each time we do that, we develop and grow ourselves. And even though it's tough, actually the tougher it is, the better, because what's happening is that you are actually getting this reflection at the deepest level that your soul can take. And it's usually a partner and your closest ones, your family, who are pushing your buttons the most. And that's because they so love you. In the afterlife, you're kind of like, you set this up, and you so love each other so much that you really want yourselves to develop your soul and develop your consciousness. And when you do that, that's where the freedom comes from.
Absolutely love that. Why did you come on mic earlier? Isn't that just...
Absolutely, we're going to give you an honorary pink today.
You absolutely are. Absolutely, you're a girl. You're a girl. Do you know, I think you're quite rare though.
Yes.
I think that's quite rare because I'm not on a man-hate trip at all. I love men, I do, and I do want to have, a loving, committed relationship, with a man. But I do think it's quite rare to find a man who is that spiritually evolved.
It's something that, because obviously James and I are in a relationship, but it's something that we...
he's taken, girls.
We both came to that conclusion in our own lives, and I just sort of put my foot down to talk about law of attraction and sort of went, this is actually top of the list, a man who's emotionally aware.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
absolutely, for me as well, someone who's spiritually and emotionally aware.
Well, actually, spiritually, a lot of people are spiritually aware, but they're quite imbalanced and they won't look at their emotions.
Right.
So, actually top of the list has to be emotions when it comes to relationships, because unless they get what James is saying,